Welcome back to ReadingBear. Today, we will take a look at some new PettyRevenge stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first story is titled Don't Want to Fix Your Mistake. No worries, I'll take care of it. Me and brother share a bedroom. We each have our own stand-up fans. Sometimes when my brother turns off his fan, it'll blow the circuit and it'll have to be manually reset it before anything will turn on in the room. If you've never blown a circuit before, you can hear it when it happens. There's a loud popping noise and the test reset buttons on the outlet will have to be pressed. The first time this happens, I show him what happened and how to fix it. No big deal. Second time, I don't sweat it. Third time, I'm upset and confront him about it. The fourth dang time it happens is when the revenge starts. I started to reset the outlet and unplug his fan. The outlet is behind a big ass dresser that we share. He's a clumsy guy, so even though it's easy to move the dresser, he kind of struggles with it. First night of revenge. I'm almost asleep when I hear him come in. He lays on his bed and reaches over to turn on his fan. Nothing. He turns the dial a few more times. Nothing. Sucks his teeth and mutters something like he's mad as he gets up to troubleshoot the problem. I hear him say, "WTF, who unplugged this, UGHHHH," as he fights with the dresser. Minutes go by, along with a bunch of grunts and sighs. He eventually has to turn on the ceiling light, which I take advantage of by yelling at him that I'm trying to sleep. Finally he gets it plugged in and the dresser moved back. I fall asleep thinking he got the point I was trying to get across. Wrong. He does this at least 3 more times. So I repeated the process each time. Reset the outlet, unplug his fan, listen to him struggle. He now resets it himself. The next story is titled Germaphobe Was a Jerk. In college, my now husband had a roommate who was just awful. Mean, sexist, rude, cruel, short temper, just an all-around jerk. He'd sucker punch the other guys, start arguments just for fun, and say the most offensive things he could conjure up just to be rude. I was frequently his target because he didn't like when someone stood up to him, and after a couple years, I had just had my limit. He was also a germaphobe, to the extreme, which meant the apartment was clean, at least, and kept a separate set of plates, cups, and silverware in his own cabinet in the kitchen. They had an on-campus townhouse apartment. One day, I was the only one home. It was incredibly unusual that all 5 of my husband's roommates and him were all gone at the same time, and even more rare that I'd be there without any of them. I went into the kitchen, opened the jerk's special germ-free cabinet and licked every single, last item. That's all. Put them all back just as I found them. Went back to studying or writing a paper or whatever and didn't tell anyone, even my husband, until we all graduated. The next story is titled Screwed Out of My Holiday Pay Because We Don't Have Set Schedules. 3 months later I used the exact same phrase to my boss when asked why I didn't come in when I wasn't on the schedule. The title probably doesn't make too much sense, but it will after reading, hopefully. I'm on mobile, so formatting. Alright, background. When I was hired for the job which I currently work, I was hired to work on Tuesday through Saturday from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. This had been my schedule for months, never changing, as I was verbally told that this was my set schedule. I even clarified this because I had to arrange childcare. For example, one week I was accidentally left off the schedule entirely and was told to just work my normal schedule. Around Thanksgiving time, we closed down for a week. The company policy is that you have to work your last scheduled shift before the break and your first scheduled shift after in order to get your holiday pay. On the Monday following Thanksgiving, remember I'm normally off on Mondays, I got a call saying I was scheduled to work and that because I didn't come in I wouldn't get my holiday pay. This kind of pissed me off because I had been told I would work Tuesday to Saturday and thus had only arranged childcare those days, so I couldn't come in that day if I wanted to. The exact phrase I was told over the phone was, "It is your responsibility to check the schedule every week because we don't have set schedules." Fast forward to this week. While checking the schedule, I noticed that my schedule is the same as normal with the exception that I am off the schedule on Saturday. So, I decide to not look a gift horse in the mouth and just take the 3-day weekend and don't mention to my boss that she left me off. So Saturday, which I normally would work, I don't go in since I'm not scheduled. I got a call from work and didn't answer, no voicemail left. Then I receive a text from my boss saying that my schedule never changes and it will be a no call, no show on my attendance record for not coming into work. I reply that I am not on the schedule and so I'm not required to come in, as it is my responsibility to check the schedule every week because we don't have set schedules. I received no further reply and am looking forward to seeing how work goes on Tuesday. The next story is titled Poop Tea Server Demands a Better Tip. A couple months back, my boyfriend and I went out for drinks one night at this cool little speakeasy in Montreal. It's actually quite an interesting place. You come in through a nondescript entrance and the place has a really nice vibe going on once you get inside. Note, this is one of those bars where the server comes to your table and serves the drinks rather than one where you order at the bar and take the drinks back yourself. We were seated at our table by the server. We ordered a couple cocktails. And then a couple more, and then a couple more after that. Each time we had to order, my boyfriend or I would have to go fetch the server so he would take our order or go up to the bar, order, and then bring the drinks back ourselves. Then, when it came time for the bill, I went up again so he would come to our table. He came and thought we were going to order again despite me clearly asking for the bill when I went up. So, he went back to get the card machine and it was another 10 minutes before he was back. At this point, I was quite ticked off at the not-so-great service and was debating whether or not I should tip him. The screen had an option for 10%, 15%, 20% or other. I decided to just leave 10% as I wanted to avoid an argument with the server. Montreal service employees are pretty damn notorious when it comes to the expectation of tips. Now, he prints out the receipt and takes a look at it and sees I left 10%. He then asks if we had a nice evening, to which my boyfriend responded that we did. We both thought it was just a standard question servers ask, so we didn't bother telling him about the poor service received, especially because it wouldn't really make a difference at this point. The guy then says, "Oh, well, if you had such a nice time, then you should have left at least a 15% tip. Because, in Canada, it's customary to leave a minimum 15% when the service is good." I'm guessing the reason he felt the need to outline that's how it is in Canada is because I'm a brown guy. Now comes the petty part. I responded, "Oh, I didn't know, why don't you cancel this bill and redo it so I can tip you properly?" He said, "Sure thing, just give me a second because the manager has to approve bill cancellations." Again, we waited a good 10 minutes for him to come back with the new bill. I was happy to wait though, because once he came back, I put in the PIN and then selected the other option for tip and left him 0%. He printed out the receipt and his look of disbelief was well worth it. We got up and my white Canadian boyfriend said, "Our only tip for you is to give better service and not be so much of an a-hole. In Canada, we don't really like a-holes." The next story is titled, Roommate was stealing my marked leftovers. Made a chocolate cake with habanero peppers, labeled it with my name, and wrecked his world. Title is pretty straightforward but I'll elaborate. My old college roommate didn't know how to cook or do dishes and didn't go food shopping much. This led to him eating my food, especially my leftovers, as those were prepared meals. I would use my leftovers to meal prep for the week, and told him to stop as it was expensive as well as inconvenient. The behavior did not stop and he actually seemed to be eating more of my food out of spite. To punish him, I baked a chocolate cake with habanero peppers and mixed the frosting with wasabi. I labeled it with my name and a bold "Do not eat" and waited. This guy has a very low tolerance for spicy foods, so I thought he would take one bite, quickly realized the error of his ways. About 2 days later, him and a couple of his friends got really drunk while I was at work and decided to dig into my food. Somehow, they ate about a third of it before realizing, and when they inevitable went to throw up from over drinking and eating spicy foods, got hit by the cake a second time. Don't know for sure, but it couldn't have felt good coming out the back end. When he asked me why I made this monstrosity, I told him I found a chocolate habanero recipe online that I wanted to try. He stopped eating my cooking after that. The next story is titled, Want to Lie About Our Sex Life? Well, hope you enjoy your fake herpes. In my senior year of high school, I started dating a guy, let's call him John. At first, John seemed very nice. He was shy and sensitive and not at all like the other jocks on the football team. After 2 months of dating, he showed himself to be quite the ass though, when right after we had sex he dumped me. I was hurt, but decided I was better off without him. 2 weeks after we broke up, 2 guys from the football team came up to me during break and told me that John had been telling everyone who would listen that we'd had sex. They told me he went into quite a bit of detail about our supposed exploits and had told everyone that he broke up with me cause I was such a slut and wanted really weird and creepy things from him. I was more than a bit hurt and super pissed. His fabricated stories meant that my reputation was ruined, while he looked like some type of hero to all his buddies. Well, I decided that I wasn't going to take it lying down. Since my reputation was already in the gutter, I decided to drag him down with me. The next time someone asked me about the breakup, I flatly told them that John broke up with me cause I gave him herpes. And wouldn't you know it, that rumor spread like wildfire. By the next morning everyone had heard it, including him. He was furious and kept telling people it wasn't true, but since he went around telling people I was a slut and bragging about all the sex we'd had, nobody would believe him. When he came to yell at me, my friends laughed in his face and told him to hit the road. Cause of his fake herpes, John ended up going to prom alone, cause no girl would date him. At the end of the year, 3 months later, I moved states to attend a nice college. Since nobody knew me in my new town, I got to start over without any issues. John stayed behind and got to enjoy his fake herpes for years. The next story is titled, I absolutely love people who pay with pennies. Seriously. 4 years ago, I'm cashiering at a wacky mart on a register that holds all the smokes and alcohol. It's 10 p.m. and these 2 young men, early 20s, come up to the counter. They have 3 random novelty items. I don't remember they were, but it was strange and unusual to get odd items this late at night. Maybe it was for some fraternity, I don't know. It's a college town, so I get weird stuff from frats a lot. I scan the items and tell them their total is $22 XX. Grinning at each other, they reach into their jackets and slam down 2-gallon Ziploc bags, full of only pennies. I stare them in the eye, but they didn't even look back at me. Everyone else in line groaned and went to other registers. These 2 kids knew what they were doing, but they didn't know what they were in for because I prepared for this. I knew this was going to inevitably happen. I grinned with them, because I was gonna get paid during this. These pranksters are here for recreation. This convo occurs between me, ringleader, the other guy was silent and awkward, and a friendly coworker of mine. Me, is this $22 XX? Ringleader. Me, did you count it? Ringleader, nope. Me, are you going to? Ringleader, nope. Me, is it at least $22 XX? Ringleader, don't know. Me, nice. Coworker, hey. You guys can use the self-checkout. It can take all of your coins at once. Me, oh, don't worry about it, cower. Ringleader, nope, don't trust them, lady. Partner laughs. Coworker, what? Why? Ringleader, doesn't count all your change, right? Coworker, I've used them before. It really works. Me, to coworker, I got this. I unpacked the Ziplocs and threw all the pennies on the counter. It was a beautiful, massive poop storm of a mess. And I digged in it. I was Frank in a dumpster in It's Always Sunny. The 2, still averting my gaze, start chuckling as if they were taking away my dignity. They whisper to each other, dude, oh my god, dude, yeah, dude, hilarious. I counted each penny, one by one. My coworker comes up to me. Coworker, guess I'll help you count this. Me, don't worry about it. She looks at me confused. Then she puts on her get down to busy look. Coworker, I got your back. Me, asterisk O. Asterisk okay. We worked up a system where we counted 10, put them in a pile, then with 10 stacks of 10 pennies we separated them, making $1 piles. We made progress slowly but surely. Some customers came to the line, but we advised them to get to another line. Some of them looked at us confused, but when they saw the counter full of pennies they understood. Some decided to wait, but when they realized it wasn't going to take just a few minutes they took their leave. Another register in the liquor department opened, so it wasn't too bad for other customers. We get to about $12, about 10 minutes in, until I knocked over the piles. Coworker, neon tonsil. Me, oops. Sorry. Coworker looks at my grin. I give her a wink and tilt my head, motioning her to leave. Coworker, you know what, I think I better let you do this. Me, ha, alright. Coworker leaves. I look at the 2 guys. They are absolutely stunned at the fallen piles of pennies. Me, to ringleader, yeah, I'm going to have to count all of this again. Ringleader. Okay. I started from 0. I count slower than ever, and made my way back up. The duo is entirely silent. I get to about $7, when suddenly I say, me, drats. I lost count. I better start all over again. Ringleader, really? Me, oh yeah man. Ringleader, why? Me, I lost count, sir. I could be in trouble if my register doesn't have the right amount of cash, and I don't want to rip you off. Ringleader. It's about an hour later. My manager walks past, looks at me. I smile at him, and he looks at the counter. He walks away without a word. I eventually count all the change, and surprisingly they had only $18. Me, I think that this is $18. The duo has been dead silent. They look done for the night. Me, I'll recount it. I ducking recounted it. Me, I think this is actually $19, XX. Without a word, the ringleader whips out a $5. Me, seriously? You had cash? Ringleader, needed to get rid of my change. Me, no problem. I'll just recount this again. I want to make perfectly sure that this is $19, since I counted $18 the first time. Ringleader, are you kidding me? I shake my head no, completely serious. He takes out a $20 bill straight out of his pocket and throws it at me. My coworker gives the biggest what the duck face. Internally, I die as well, because they were smart enough to have a backup plan. And the fact that he was touching his cash in his pocket the entire time kinda messed with me. I take the cash, do the transaction, give him his change, thanked him and wished him a good night. The two start to put their pennies back in the Ziploc bags and I didn't help them at all. I watched them just as how they watched me. Lots of pennies dropped to the floor, but they didn't care to pick them up. It looked like their souls were sucked out of them. It was past midnight and I clocked out way past when I was supposed to. A lot of my coworkers gave me a thumbs up or told me good night. Even my manager told me good job, the only 2 words he ever said to me. Went to bed at the dorms after such a great petty penny night and crashed. Strange to say, but I'd love to count pennies again. The next story is titled Ruining a Wedding Reception for Fun and Profit. When I was 13, so 8 years ago, my dad remarried, after divorcing my mum 4 years before. Before the divorce, his fiancée had been his mistress. My mum is completely better off without him, and ignoring the fact that I wouldn't exist, I don't think she should have married him in the first place. Even if I think my parents weren't a good match, that's no excuse to cheat on your wife. This woman was ducking vile in all sorts of ways. She constantly belittled me, made fun of the fact I needed to take pills for my mental illness, despite being a ducking pharmacist. I don't get it either, and was generally awful to me and my siblings. But she was a decade younger than my dad and reasonably hot, so he didn't give a poop how she treated us. The one time he actually listened to us about her is when they were thinking of having a baby and my brother said he'd ask our mum to sue for full custody of us if they did. So anyway, they got married. I was a bridesmaid, cause that witch had no real friends. The other 2 bridesmaids were her sister and my sister. My brother was the best man, cause she didn't like my dad's best friend. He and my dad still don't talk to this day, even though the guy was like an uncle to me as a little kid. It was a wedding, everything went normally. But at the beginning of the reception, before the first dance, we were taking pictures in front of a chocolate fountain, looking like the happy family we never were and would never be. I'm on the autism spectrum, and have a problem maintaining eye contact. This extends to looking at a camera. So when we had to retake a photo because I wasn't looking, she leans down and whispers something in my ear. I'm not going to repeat it, but it involved the R word. I don't like saying it. Anyway, I kinda snapped, and decided she was gonna pay for this. No one noticed, or at least no one called me out, when I started slowly moving the chocolate fountain towards the edge of the table. When it got to the edge, it makes contact with the back of that pure white wedding dress and slowly drips down. By the time she notices, it looks like she's pooped herself. But for all anyone else knows, this was an accident. She has no spare dress, and that stain is not coming out. So first dance, cutting the cake, speeches, everything, this woman has what looks like a poop stain on the back of her dress. It was a small revenge, but it was so worth it. What's supposed to be the happiest day of this stupid woman's life, and she's gonna remember that stain every time she thinks about it. They never did get the stain out. And nobody knew it was me. Until now, I guess. Hi family, if you're reading this. Susie, you're a want and you deserve that chocolate stain. The next story is titled, Girl Does 0% of the work on a huge project and gets 0% of the credit. This story takes place my third year of college. I was taking a class where the entire grade was determined by a semester-long final project. We were supposed to be in groups of 3 on the project, but the third guy in our group had more sense than me and bailed early. This left just me and lazy girl, hereafter known as LG. LG didn't do anything the entire semester. I would ask her to work on pieces of the project, but she always had an excuse for why it wasn't done yet, or in her case started. Now I didn't want any confrontation with this girl, as she was my friend at the time, but I finally lost it one night towards the end of the semester. I'd asked her to meet at my house to work on the project, but something important came up. Fed up with this one-sided partnership, I decided to air my woes at the local bars. And guess who I run into? An LG and her boyfriend drinking. She made up some bullpoop excuse and I made a plan. I powered through the entire assignment, except for the conclusion, which I asked LG to finish. I held out exactly zero hope that she would finish this section, so I quickly finished it myself and turned in my project with a little note to the teacher. The note detailed how I had done literally everything for the project and that despite my best efforts, I could not get LG to contribute. I said that I was turning in my version and that our conclusions section may differ, as I'd asked her to actually do that part herself. So here's a little tidbit about our final projects. We each had to turn one in. LG here not only didn't do the conclusion, she didn't turn in a project at all. She tried calling and witching at me for not giving her credit, to which I went off on her for not doing poop on the entire project. I mentioned how I even gave her the opportunity to turn in my work for a grade if she'd only do one thing. She hung up after that, and that was the last time we spoke. The next story is titled, Divorce Me While I Am Sick? That's fine, enjoy being single. Not my story, but a family friend's story. I knew this lovely German lady who I will call Heidi. Not real name. She was married to an Israeli man who I'll call Douche. Douche was a douche for a number of reasons. He worked with my dad in IT, who said he had a hero complex where he would cause disasters at work and then try to be the hero and save the day. We even suspect he caused a huge IT disaster at our national airport while he was working there. He was also really creepy. He creeped on my younger sister, calling her randomly and asking to pick her up. He was the exact opposite of his wife, who was lovely and sweet and charismatic, and I have no idea how they ended up together. Unfortunately, a while after we made friends with them, Heidi got very sick. Her colon stopped working, she almost died. Thankfully she was in a country with stellar healthcare who saved her life, but she found out she has Crohn's disease, and she had to get a colostomy bag. While she was recovering from her surgery, Douche announced he wanted to divorce. His words were, and I quote, "I didn't marry a sick woman. Ducking prick." He left her high and dry, and very soon was seeing someone else. He lost all the friends he had made in our country with his awful behavior. My family told him he was no longer welcome near us as we were there for Heidi. He finally fecked off back to Israel. Apparently he had got into quite a bit of debt while in my country, and skipped off to avoid paying. Good riddance, we all said. Heidi found her feet eventually. She took up photography, and went to university to study it. She did very well for herself, and lived a happy life free from Douche. After about a year, Douche contacted Heidi and she told us all about it. Apparently he was trying to sweet-talk her into going over to Israel to go through with the divorce proceedings. According to Heidi, your marital status is on your identity card in Israel, and it's one of the first things a girl asks to see when you go on a date. When the girls saw he was married on his card, they'd never go for a second date. So every time he'd call her asking when she was coming over, she'd put a huge poop-eating grin on and reply, "Oh, I don't know, I'm not really in a position to fly with my condition and all. Maybe when I get better." She knew full well he won't set foot back here because his creditors were still looking for their money back. She would just relish in the knowledge that he was getting rejected by all those women he was pursuing in Israel while she chilled with us having a great time. Heidi is doing much better now. She went back to Germany, though still visits my family and her friends from time to time. She's still her awesome self. I don't know what douche is up to now, but I suspect after all these years he is still a douche. The next video is titled, "You Like the Laundry Soap I Buy?" Great. How about some fun soap just for you? This happened a while ago, but I just found this sub, so here goes. I used to live on the 3rd floor of an apartment that had its laundry in the basement. Which means 4 flights of stairs for me, no elevator, and I have a newborn, so I'm washing quite a bit. So we have cubbies in the laundry room for our soap and stuff. I've lived there a year and never had an issue leaving my soap down there. Apparently, some new people had moved in that were using my soap. When I realized it, I left a note asking that they stop. Nothing. They kept using. Okay. Now I'm pissed. I got 2 bottles of soap. A blue-colored one. And clear-colored one. Marked the bottles clearly that they belonged to me, so they couldn't accidentally say they thought they were theirs. Filled the blue soap with blue RIT dye. Filled the clear soap with unscented bleach. And waited. Didn't take long. The next morning I hear screaming coming from the laundry room. 4 floors up I heard it. I waited a while and ventured downstairs. In the laundry room I found a bunch of wet clothes in the garbage that were bleach stained. 4 days later I saw a young man get into a car with a blue stained t-shirt. Touch my ducking stuff. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the channel and post some bear emojis in the comment.